Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Straight No Chaser podcast, where we talk human freedom through money, technology, economics, and philosophy. This is the next episode in the monthly roundup series, and today we have Ricky and Herman on the show. Oken, unfortunately, is not able to join. He is doing some work for the Namibian government, and time pressure is keeping him away. We wish him well with that. It was great having you on the pod, and I hope you get to join in for some guest appearances, Oken. Shout out to you. Herman is actually on holiday and joins us in from a restaurant, so there is a little bit of background noise, so apologies for that. This month's episode, we chat a bit about the BIP 110. Activation date is getting closer, so it's something that is sort of becoming front and center in most Bitcoiners' minds. We talk a little bit about AI tech, some freedom tech, new developments in the Bitcoin space, and pretty much a general chat about all things Bitcoin and freedom related over the month of June. So welcome. I know you guys will enjoy this one. Cool. Okay, welcome everybody. There's three of us in the house today. Herman, Ricky, Oken is otherwise engaged with governmental work, and he may be on hiatus for a while. So three of us are here. Herman, you're on holiday at the moment, snuck away from the wife. I hope you survive the experience and get back and all in one piece. And Ricky, you're sitting in Bali at the moment. So I'm sitting in Pretoria. Anyway, tell me a bit about what you guys are doing at the moment.
Yeah, Ricky, you go first, bro. I'm jealous.
Yeah, so I decided this work has been very hectic. I've had a few hectic years, and a friend of mine's out here in Bali, so I came over to join him, spend a few weeks here before going over to the UK, which I do every summer, spend time with my wife's family. So yeah, I've been working and surfing out here for the past 3 weeks. Life is good. There's actually a Bali Bitcoin hub that I'm going to go check out tomorrow. It's like a co-working space, a couple of restaurants. I haven't been yet, but it's just up the road. I'll take it, put up there on the scooter and see what's going on. But yeah, life's been good. I've been avoiding the BIP 110 debate, not getting involved. Surfing rather. I think it's a much better use of my time, to be honest with you.
Dude, I'm in the Cedarburg Mountains, and I'm on holiday with the family. Yeah, we do. It's school holidays, and our kids are that age where when it's school holidays, we get to do stuff with them. So it's a fun place. It's a kid spot. Like we're here with friends, and the kids are just nowhere to be seen the whole day. So it's actually kind of cool. And yeah, I did. It's great because there's a cold pool right next to the hot pool as well. So I'm doing like cold immersions every morning, and that water is proper cold through winter in the Cedarburg Mountains. It's it's not lukewarm. So yeah, no, it's fun.
And the Cedarburg.
I'd rather be in Bali surfing though. Not gonna lie.
doing warm water immersions every morning in the barrel.
I'd much rather be surfing in Bali, dude. But anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah. So I'm sitting in Pretoria. I am not on holiday at all, working, and but I don't have small kids. My 18-year-old daughter is in America visiting her BFFs from high school that she graduated with. She saved some pennies and she decided to go and spend 4th of July, which I'm sure we're going to talk about just now. But she spent 4th of July in the US in the mighty state of Georgia at a lake house, which is, if you're middle-class American, you have a lake house, if you live in Georgia anyway. And my other daughter, who's 21, is getting married next Saturday.
So, oh, wow. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's super cool. So, I'm actually facing empty nest syndrome at the moment, and my wife is starting to get this like weird, like nervous, like twitch in her neck. In the evenings, the house is dead quiet, like nothing's going on. It's super weird.
Sounds like you guys need to come to Bali.
Yeah, you should be the one sitting in Bali, dude.
Yeah, totally, man, totally. So yeah, I think just kick off on. Somebody mentioned BIP 110 earlier. I don't know if we want to go there, but I suppose it's how can you not really? Maybe just a quick round robin, and you guys can just spit out your thoughts. Obviously, free to say whatever you want, as you always are. I, for one, have pretty much not gone into the whole BIP 110 thing in any great sort of detail. I have listened a bit to Bitcoin Mechanic talking about it. And I appreciate the guy's passion. I think he speaks from the heart, and it's it's easy to be in. Yeah, I mean, I suppose people who speak from the heart and speak with passion tend to inspire something. But having said that, the whole idea that this is a temporary fix, the whole thing just fell flat for me at that point. The whole idea of that saying about nothing more temporary than, or nothing more permanent than a temporary government solution sort of just popped into my head and hasn't actually ever gone away. So I've just taken a interest in, okay, this is what one side says, this is what the other side says. I'm just going to sit back and just watch with some interest, but that's my take. Herman, you've actually popped a couple of comments on the socials over a while, so I'm sure you've got something that you would like to say about that.
I mean, yeah, dude, like I always qualify the things I say by starting with, I've spent over a decade breaking my head trying to understand Bitcoin on a technical level, and that's not my background at all. But I have put in a lot of effort to try and understand it on a technical level. But that being said, my opinions aren't technical in nature. There are people that are far smarter than I am. And I think that's my big takeaway from this, is that I recognize that my initial response to this whole debate was very knee-jerk, and I initially spent a lot of time listening to Mechanic and other BIP 110 proponents, and I had the same sort of knee-jerk reaction as what they do. And I didn't want to hear what the more technically literate people were trying to tell me, because that's not a satisfactory answer. It's not nice to hear that there's a problem, that there's this horrible shit on the blockchain and you can't really do much about it. That's not an answer that you want to hear. That's not a nice answer. And so I preferred the narrative that was coming from the BIP 110 side. And I think it's the behavior of the people who put me off of that more than anything else, because I started seeing all these disingenuous arguments, and that made me pay more attention to the sort of the technical voices that I was maybe ignoring. And the more I listened, the more it made sense to me. Like, this thing sucks, but you can't fix it the way that they're proposing to fix it. And really, what this is at the end of the day is that it's basically just a protest. This whole BIP 110 thing is basically just a giant protest on the street. That's not really going to achieve anything at the end of the day. And the pivotal moment for me came when there was this debate at the Prague conference, where Stefan Levera was moderating, and on the one side there's Peter Todd and another developer, and on the other side there's Knut and Rockstar Dev, and they actually had a great conversation. But at the end, Knut admitted that, look, this is basically a giant protest. We're not trying to solve the problem on a technical level, we're trying to express our dissatisfaction. And my immediate question was like, but that's kind of pointless. Like, I've always looked at protest on the street as being pointless. You don't achieve anything. And so that made me sort of come around to this idea that there's better ways to express your frustration with the situation, rather than implementing this change that's going to probably result in a very short and temporary soft fork, but still nonetheless a risky situation for many people. So that's my thoughts on it. I'm not super technical, but my view on it is that at the end of the day, the only real filter is the fees. I think that's what it comes down to, is that you can't you can't filter the stuff out at the protocol level because Bitcoin transactions, it is just data at the end of the day. So how are you going to filter data out of the blockchain? You can make it more difficult, I guess, but then again, they've already figured out ways around BIP 110 and the soft fork is not even taken place yet. So it just seems kind of pointless to me. Like I don't understand, and that's what put me off of it. Is this? I don't, because I was turned off of protest in the streets many years ago. Like I don't like this idea of expressing your anger by engaging in pointless activities like throwing stones, looting shops, marching around with placards, even voting. I mean, it's fucking pointless, and I hate using my energy by pursuing pointless things just because I'm angry. I think it's a waste of time, and that's what this whole Book 110 thing looks like to me. It's a bunch of people that are angry, understandably so, by the way, understandably so, but nonetheless, it's a waste of time and energy to express that anger in the way that they're doing it. That's my takeaway.
Ricky, over to you, man. Let's hear from your side.
Yeah, so that's a caveat this with being like, I'm not a developer, I'm not overly technical on this stuff either, but to echo Herman's point, I empathize completely with the position that the BIP 110 knots crew are coming from. Like, I think I agree with their like the first principle there, that there's a problem. And you've got these spammers who've moved from shitcoin chains to Bitcoin and they're putting their fucking bullshit on the Bitcoin blockchain, which is not non-monetary use. But I agree with Herman that fees is kind of the best way to filter this out. Because like you only have to look at so far as like all these spammers, Runes and Satrea and all of them, they're all signaling they're BIP 110 ready. So like that means they're gonna be able to put their shit on, that fork. So it's pointless. I also think that people have invested so much time and energy into this now that it's like sunk cost fallacy. They don't want to turn away from it. They're just like seeing it out, seeing it through. But then on like a centralization, decentralization angle, I agree that us trusting the core developers or that one implementation of Bitcoin is risky. And you have this high priest class, which are the core devs. And some valid points are made about the core devs orientation in terms of like they seem like lefties, but that being said, a lot of them have contributed great stuff to Bitcoin. But you trusting the small group as opposed to, so that they're like, okay, so let's not trust a small group, let's just trust one guy, Luke Dasher, which just makes no fucking sense. So and there's one guy who somehow lost all of his Bitcoin by not securing it properly. So that whole thing just like it doesn't pass the sniff test for me. Like people can get more technical about it, but like just at a super basic level, like you're complaining about centralization and then have a more centralized system. Sure, okay, so the NOTs implementation, maybe more people can start contributing. Great, that's cool, but presently not. Presently it's mainly just Luke. Yeah, so I begrudgingly fall on the core side of the debate. I'm not happy about it. I wish there was more that could be done. But I don't think, for me, BIP 110 was not it.
I just want to add in there, but the only reason I posted about these things on social media, and only one or two of the posts really attracted a lot of attention. The rest of it is like, I don't have a huge, and I've been posting this on my personal account, not on the project account. The only reason I've been posting on this about on social media is because not because I'm arguing in favor of either of the two sides. I just wanted to share this experience of like, because I think this is what a lot of people are going through, is that, spam sucks. I think 99.99% of people who are into Bitcoin for the right reasons agree that spam sucks. But I think there's a knee-jerk reaction from people that because spam sucks, we've got to be supporting of Bitcoin of BIP 110. And I think that knee-jerk reaction is kind of part of the problem. Because there are problems in this world that you don't necessarily have immediate and obvious solutions to, and sometimes the most immediate and obvious solution can actually make the problem worse. And that's been my experience talking to a lot of like people who are working at a very, very like grassroots level. You have a very rudimentary understanding of Bitcoin, and they have this fanatical support of BIP 110. And I noticed just talking to these people from different projects that, like, guys, you should spend a little bit more time, just get some clarity as to what exactly you're upset with here, because it's never a good idea to go into anything thinking that you found a solution if you're reacting to anger, frustration, or fear. Um, the biggest thing that you should be doing is, like, first deal with that. And then if you do think that you've come up with some sort of a solution that you want to support, make sure you're not supporting it out of either anger or fear, because that's a horrible place to be. You end up arguing and writing the most ridiculous shit on public forums, if that's the place that you're coming from. And so that's the reason I've been sharing on social media about any of this, not to support either side, but just to try and, like, just to maybe hopefully get people to think a little bit more clearly about this. Like, if you're really angry and frustrated, just take some time off before you climb onto any sort of public forum and start posting stuff there.
Yeah, I think great point there, Herman. This fear and anger angle, I mean, that's how politicians grab hold of, the populace and start driving, campaign promises. We're at, what is this whole thing about, we're at a critical point, the future is doom, vote for me, and we know the way out of here. You end up in that sort of situation. So fear and anger generally, I think, is what the newspaper headlines rely on. That all sort of media headlines aim at fear and anger. The whole FUD thing. Somebody once said to me, if you read a newspaper headline and your immediate reaction is to get wound up, then those guys have done their job. They're just there to get you emotive, because emotive, when people get emotional, it's knee-jerk, then that drives engagement, and that drives the algorithms, and it's all this ridiculous thing behind the scenes. But also, having said that, there's also a little bit of a saying in the Bitcoin circles about you can just do things. Maybe it's a Nostr thing, maybe it's a Bitcoin thing. I sort of get the two confused sometimes. But if you're unhappy about something, you can just go out there and do something about it. And if you convince enough people that your way is a better way than what they have, and they can try it and test it, off they can go. So I think this is just another example of somebody's unhappy and they have proposed a solution, whether it's a great solution or a temporary solution or whatever it is. Someone's proposed something and they're going to put their idea forward, and I suppose the rubber's going to hit the road whenever the engagement date is. I think it's sometime in August. Is it 10th of August or something? I'm not really too sure.
It's at a specific block number, 963631 or something like that. But yeah, it looks like it's early August, and we'll find out then. Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's not wade into the swamp and continue down that path. Herman, there was something that, so I mentioned earlier my daughter's in the US for 4th of July celebration. And as it turns out, it's the 250th anniversary of the mighty US of A. But Herman, you mentioned that at the time this was going on in the US, in the Middle East, there was a funeral and possibly the largest human mass gathering in history, perhaps, around this. Tell us a bit more about that one.
I mean, I think it's fascinating. Ricky and I was chatting about this. We were chatting about it offline, actually. No, sorry, not offline, outside of this forum. But we were chatting about this and how this is probably the largest gathering, at least that we know of. And it was just, I mean, it's just massive, like millions and millions of people. The mind can't comprehend that. And I think it's kind of funny to contrast that with the 250th celebration in the US. I think it's kind of funny that those two things are happening at the same time. And there were so many examples of, like, botched attempts at blowing this 250th celebration up in the US. Like, they had not always anyone's fault, but I mean, there was horrible weather at one point. the numbers were far lower than they were hoping for, and there's just so many problems in the US, and society there is so divided that it's just kind of funny to contrast this. So I don't know exactly. I can't put it exactly into words, but I think it's kind of interesting that those two things coincided, and it's not as if anyone planned it. I mean, well, I guess the US did plan on assassinating the Iranian leader, but still, it's not exactly scripted, or maybe it is. But there seems to have been a much bigger celebration of unity in Iran than there was in the US, despite everybody wanting us to believe that Iran is the villain in all of this. There's this massive celebration of unity where millions of people come out in support of a single cause. And this is kind of what the US wanted with this whole 250, but I think it was a bit of a fail.
Yeah, I mean, nothing rallies people together like an invading force. It's. I remember before the US invaded, there was sort of talk of the local populace being a bit unhappy about the government, and I know some of it seemed to have been stoked up and maybe overhyped, or maybe, I don't know, third forces trying to stoke people up, but there was a general sentiment that the oak in the street wasn't that happy. You saw these photos of life in Iran in 1976 or something, and there's the chicks are wearing short skirts. They look like they're in London in the 70s. And you've got this thing going on, and it started in my mind. I was looking at this and going, okay. I saw the Arab Spring that happened in the early 2000s. And yeah, that started in one of the jeepers. Was it
Tunisia?
Tunisia. Yeah. I remember that one.
2011, I think.
Yeah, and that one was sparked off, if I remember, by a guy that had his he had like a little trolley or something that he was selling goods from, and some cop came and confiscated it, and that was his last means of supporting himself. And the oak doused himself in fuel and lit himself on fire, just in protest, like he was that desperate. And then this seemed to kick off this wave that just went from Tunisia to all the surrounding Islamic countries. And I think it hit Syria and kind of stopped because Syrian government just went hardcore on their own citizens. But anyway, with that back in the back of my mind and looking at this Iranian thing, I was sort of wondering, is this maybe not the start of some change in that sort of regime? And then suddenly, the US goes and hits them, and now everybody is totally anti-US, and the Great Satan and all that sort of thing. But also, just having said that, as kind of out of the way, and as much as the West likes to diss Iran as being sort of really a backward state or something, this war has had massive effects on global economy. I mean, obviously, oil prices is one thing, but I just saw a headline now in June that a lot of central banks are thinking about holding rates steady and changing. There's one here. They are looking at pressure prompting central banks to consider rate hikes, dashing hopes of additional rate hikes for years to come. I mean, that's just a little one-liner. But I mean, pretty interesting that this sort of, I won't say little backward nation, because I mean they've a very old civilization and they're a huge country, but it largely ignored from a Western world point of view, and yet this has had such a massive impact. Anyway, I don't really have a question there, but yeah, just some rambling thoughts on my side on this. I haven't really stayed up to date with the latest Iran thing. Sounds like ceasefire, then not ceasefire, and fuel price up, fuel price down. But it looks like it's generally trending towards normal at the moment. And even ceasefires breaking don't seem to be changing too much in terms of fuel prices anymore. It's almost like war seems to have become a normal part of life now. Like, the Ukraine war was like a huge thing when it started. And now it's like, oh, well, there's Ukraine, there's Gaza, there's Iran. Business carries on as normal. Anyway, as I said, just a statement, not really a question there. But Ricky, I can see you've got something to say there.
I think it's a gradually then suddenly thing, So the ceasefire was in place up until about 3 days ago. America violated the ceasefire numerous times, and then they kept trying to send ships through the Strait of Hormuz, through the southern route past Oman. Obviously, part of the MOU was that Iran would have sole control of it, and any ship that goes through there has to register with the Iranian authority. And if they don't, they'll get shot at. And so the Americans are telling these ships, no, go through, it's fine, we got your back. Ships went through, they got shot. Obviously, the Americans knew that was going to happen because the Americans probably just gearing up. They used the MOU as a reason to rearm and get themselves ready for the next phase of the war. And what this has shown anyone paying attention, any nation state paying attention, is that you cannot trust the US and Israel, obviously, but you cannot trust the US at its word at all. It will lie, cheat, and steal. It will do what empires always do, and then that's just use the most aggressive use of force and lying and bad diplomacy to get their way. What I always find so amazing when I see American commentators speaking about this stuff is that like, we've lost 14 American soldiers have died. And I'm like, yeah, and you've killed over 4,000 Iranians. Like, those people's lives are of equal value to yours. Like, why do you think American lives are worth more than Iranian lives? Especially those Iranians were doing nothing to you at all. You came in and bombed them, And so Americans complain about 9/11, how it changed America's view and had launched the whole fake war on terror and invaded Iraq and Afghanistan because 3,000 people died. So Iran has had more than a 9/11 take place since the second round of the war started recently. And obviously now those people want revenge. And this is what we saw at the funeral for Khamenei, when somewhere between the realm of the numbers, it's hard to get a read on it, but somewhere between 12 million to 40 million people came out into the streets. I mean, that's crazy. And that's across the Shia crescent, right? So it's like Iran and Iraq. But in Tehran alone, they reckon somewhere between 20 and 30 million people on the streets of Tehran, it's a mind-bending number. Like we said earlier, this might be the biggest human gathering ever recorded. To come out in for the funeral. And if you know anything about Shia Islam, they raised the red flag, which is the red flag of revenge. And so people might know the story of Salman Rushdie, who wrote the book The Satanic Verses, which was basically shit-talking Islam. And the old Papa Khamenei declared a fatwa, essentially saying, you have brought shame on Islam, and we're going to get you, basically. And for the rest of his life, he was hounded by Shia extremists or people seeking revenge. I mean, he lost an eye, he was stabbed, he got beaten up many times, like his life was ruined. And so what they've done now, and this is what the Americans don't realize, well, maybe they do, but they're just too dumb to actually really appreciate the scale of this. But Donald Trump's family, Vice President J.D. Vance, his family, Pete Hegseth, everyone, all the generals, everyone involved in this, their families have a fatwa declared on them, a religious fatwa that will go on forever. These people will not stop. And the revenge won't be served today or tomorrow or, a few weeks from now. And this can happen 20 years from now. Donald Trump's grandkids, could be walking in the streets and someone douses them with petrol and sets them on fire because of what Donald Trump did here. This is what this means to these people. And Americans were baying for revenge after 9/11, and they went into Iraq and killed 1 million people, because of that ridiculous war. And so, but Americans think that their feelings are the only ones that matter, and their people are the only ones that matter. And the rest of the world is kind of catching up to the fact that that's not the case. So yeah, I mean, I wish it didn't happen, but this is what happens when you play stupid games. And if you look at it now, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. The Americans, the day before yesterday, Trump came out and said, we're going to provide security for the Strait of Hormuz, and we're going to charge 20% on all cargo vessels, 20% of the cargo value to escort you through. Now, the Iranians were charging $2 million on a super tanker, which is basically $1 per barrel of oil, because they can transport about 2 million barrels of oil. So the Iranians are charging way less than the Americans are charging. But the Americans a month ago were complaining and saying, it's international waterways, it should be free navigation, no one should be charging tolls or anything. Then the Americans come on and say they're going to charge 20%. subsequently Trump dropped that because obviously his entire administration was like, what are you talking about? This is just like ruins all of our credibility in the eyes of all of our partners. So it's hard to see what the end game here is, because before this happened, the Strait of Hormuz was open and no tolls were charged. Now the straits are closed, tolls are being charged, and the Americans are trying to fix the issue, want to charge 20%. So like, this is ridiculous. They made it about the nuclear issue. Iran, the previous Khamenei, before America assassinated him, they declared a fatwa against nuclear weapons, saying we will not develop nuclear weapons. Now, you best believe they're going to develop nuclear weapons, because otherwise, how do they stop America from invading them again if you don't have nukes, basically? Which does now make our situation way worse, because they have very advanced missiles that they can fling nukes quite far. Some say up to 3,500 kilometers, which puts the Strait of Gibraltar, Central Europe, all the way down to Diego Garcia, the Indian Ocean, all of that within that radius. Because the thing, you basically have a North Korea in the middle of the Persian Gulf if they get nukes. Except North Korea is on the far end of the world, where Iran's literally in the middle. So they just made the whole situation infinitely worse. And just to go back to the point about the Arab Springs, like those things all seemed organic, but it turns out none of those things are organic. This is intelligence agencies, big Western intelligence agencies, CIA, MI6, the French, figuring out how they can use social tension to stage a coup and revolution. They did it in Ukraine. The reason they did it in Ukraine is the reason why we have the Ukraine war today. They overthrew the democratically elected government with a far, I don't use this term lightly, but a far-right group of militants, neo-Nazis, overthrew the democratically elected government of Ukraine, directly led to the Ukraine war with Russia now. So, these guys, they keep on poking around everywhere, and I think they've finally come up against a country, a civilization, a nation state that can actually resist it. This is the first time in decades. So that's why it's particularly interesting. I don't carry any water for the Iranian regime. I think it's like a brutal theocracy, which I think is not for me, but it is quite good to see the empire getting a push club. So that's my take.
I just want to add something onto that. I think, you can make some fantastic points there, and I think one has to really crystallize this understanding that, and these are not my thoughts. I'm just repeating what I heard Al say. But you gotta look at how the Americans justify most of their actions, and so they're always trying to portray this image that they're the good guys and that somebody else is the bad guy, and this is how they build up support. There's a whole movie industry built up around this idea. This propaganda that America is always on the right side, and in order to carry this out, what they have to do is they have to use this sort of gradual strategy where they're gradually trying to push the other side to do something which they can then use as a justification to do what they really want to do. And so this is what you saw happen between Ukraine and Russia, where they gradually kept expanding. They never did anything that was so bad that it was obvious that they were the bad guys, but they kept gradually putting missiles closer and closer, gradually expanding NATO, including more countries that had no business being in NATO to begin with, gradually expanding until eventually they poked Russia to the point where Russia retaliated, and then boom, now they got the excuse to turn Russia into the bad guy. And this is what happened with this recent. The war's been ongoing again, round number 3 for like 3 or 4 days now. There was the ceasefire, and the Americans very, very clearly, again, somebody else said this, but they acting like a bad lawyer. They took a particular point of the memorandum of understanding and then twisted it to mean something that it shouldn't have meant, and tried to get boats to go through a particular corridor in the Strait of Hormuz without coordinating that passage with the Iranians, whereas the Memorandum of Understanding specifically said that there's a ceasefire based on the understanding that Iran will coordinate passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Americans reinterpreted that clause of the Memorandum of Understanding and started trying to get ships to go through without the coordination of Iran. And then they used some clever language to say, but no, actually, under our interpretation, blah, blah, blah. And then Iran retaliated to that, and now, boom, the Americans have their excuse to continue the war. And so there's this constant effort from the American side to create the circumstances. They can't be seen as the aggressor. They can't be seen as the ones to first start dropping the bombs. So they gotta provoke the other side. It's like typical bully tactics, you know. You run around the playground and you're constantly trying to push somebody else to start a fight so that you've got an excuse to basically fuck them up. And you know, I also don't. You know, I'm not a spokesperson for the Iranian regime. I would never want to live under a theocratic government. I wouldn't last very long under circumstances like that, I don't think. So, you know, but at the same time, as Ricky said, I just want to echo those thoughts. It's kind of, you know, you wanna at some point see the rest of the world recognize this game for what it is.
And I think that's happening right now, right? Like the one thing that the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians both have done is they've shown extreme restraint in the way that they interact with the empire, with the US. So, for example, like the Americans and NATO, because the Ukrainians aren't doing shit. Like that's all NATO and America, right? Are sending long-range drones into Russia and hitting these refineries all over Russia, and they hit 90 oil transport ships over the past week in the seas of civilian infrastructure, not military, not navy ships, civilian tankers. They're hitting civilian infrastructure, and the Russians are responding and hitting military targets. And the same with the Iranians. The Americans come in, they carpet bomb Tehran, they blow up the refineries. There's black oil rain raining down on Tehran. They're bombing their water treatment plants. They hit a school, killed 180 schoolgirls. And the Iranians, what do? They respond by hitting military installations in the neighboring regions that are American military bases. They're not hitting civilian infrastructure. So they're just showing restraint the whole time. And it's just like the mask is off. Like it shows you the empire just does what the empire wants to do. There's no regard for human life. There's no regard for fairness. Clearly, international law is a scam. It's not real. The might is right. And so the key difference, though, between the Iranians and the Russians, I think, is that the Iranians are playing a much better game of how you escalate against the empire. The Russians, for some reason, Putin still seems to think that he can reason with Trump, and this is the administration that they can try to patch up relations with the West and stop this onslaught against Russia. Whereas anyone in the more hawkish views in Russia are like, what are you doing? Like, you can't, like, we didn't have any communication with America through the Biden administration, basically none with Obama. 8 years, it was like no communication. But they weren't launching missiles into Russia. Now, you're talking to Trump. You think you can reason with him, but he's launching missiles into your fucking country and blowing up your refineries and civilian areas. So, whereas the Iranians have realized, okay, no, you can't reason with the Americans. The only thing that the empire understands is violence and force. So I think this next round of escalation we're seeing now, I think the Iranians are completely going to pull the gloves off, and it's going to be hectic. And the thing is, like, this could lead to World War III. Yeah, absolutely. Because it only takes America to launch a ground invasion into Iraq for this to really spiral out of control. People must realize that the First World War, for the first 6 months, 8 months of the First World War, it was called like the Balkan conflict. They just thought it was like another conflict in the Balkans. It only became known as World War I much later down the line. And this is the thing, like, these wars are unpredictable events. And so we can have a whole global depression caused by this, because the Strait of Hormuz controls 20% of the world's oil supply, but it also controls 50 to 60% of the world's helium supply, a huge amount of the fertilizer supply, because the natural gas that comes out and nitrogen and nitrates come out of the ground in the oil and gas production process used to make nitrogen fertilizers. So that fertilizer distribution is going to cause lack of distribution. It's going to cause famine around the world. It's going to cause food prices to spike. It's going to even cause countries that have fertilizer, like America, that makes their own fertilizer, prices to spike there too, and their food to go up. So like the knock-on consequences of this are going to be so severe. And this is all on the back of Donald Trump running a campaign and saying no new wars, no more stupid wars. We're going to pull ourselves out of the Middle East. It's ridiculous. So it just seems like he's a massive scammer. Or on one side, the Epstein class had so much dirt on him that they just got him to do what they wanted him to do. And this all comes back to Israel wanting to take out Iran because they see him as the primary threat to them in the region, because Iran is the only Muslim country that is standing up for the Palestinians. And this all comes back to the Palestinian cause in Gaza, the West Bank. They are the axis of resistance, and they're supporting Hamas and Hezbollah and the axis of resistance, which is basically pushing back against Israel. So this all comes back to Israel, and it's just absolute desire to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians off the face of the earth. In my opinion, this all comes back to the Palestinian question.
But we know Trump is a massive scammer because he launched Trump coin. He made millions. He made millions of dollars on a shitcoin. So we know he's a scammer.
Number one crypto trader 2025, made the most money out of crypto
Exactly.
in the world.
Yeah, it's insane.
And Herman, I think you and I might have had this conversation years ago where we were like nominally pro-Trump. But like for me, like when the Venezuela thing happened, I was like, I'm off the Trump train. And then when the whole Iran thing happened, I was like, look, this guy's absolutely massive scammer. And like,
I mean, yeah, I was nominally,
you know,
I was nominally pro-Trump just because because you know the things he was saying sounded so good. But I always had this. You know, I had this experience of being heavily pro-Obama in 2008 in the back of my head, where he didn't deliver on any of the promises that he made. And I was like, you can't ever trust a politician. It doesn't matter what they promise.
Never.
You can't ever trust a politician because the incentives are overwhelmingly in the direction of lying for the sake of popularity. And so you can't ever trust what a politician says.
Absolutely. And they don't work for you, the voter. They work for the vested interests to fund them and like fund their campaigns. Like they act as if they work for their whole job is to spin a story to the voter to make it seem like they work for them, but actually they work for the vested interests. And in Trump's case, he's working for the military industrial complex or the financial industrial complex, the technical industrial complex, probably all three, but definitely not for the MAGA Republicans. Like they've just been taken for a ride.
Yeah, I think it's probably safe to say that the only thing, everything is uncertain. It's just crazy. I'm actually a bit bummed Oaken wasn't on today's one, because you'd be so proud. I actually got my little Hermes agent up and running, and I got it to do a task to go and find some stuff, news items, relevant news items in the month of June as talking points for today's show. I posted it to you guys, and then I quickly, when I actually read it, realized there was some shitcoin stuff in there. So I quickly went back, canceled the post, cleared out all the shitcoin stuff. And I don't know if these are like fake headlines. I didn't actually go and check every single one, but I just thought this will be a great test run to see. I asked my bot to go and do something. It came back with a whole bunch of answers. But just taking a look at some of the economic stuff that my agent came back on. And I've called my agent Jules from Pulp Fiction, Samuel Jackson's character, because he was like the coolest sidekick ever. So
yeah, he was.
that's his name. But just from an economics point of view, these are some of the headlines coming up. So Federal Reserve held the federal funds rate steady on the 17th of June. Next headline, major divergence in central bank policy. The Fed, the ECB, and the BOE, which is Bank of England, cut rates. So just the headline above it says it's holding rates steady. The next one says they're cutting rates. Then it goes on to say two other banks, RBA and BCB, I'm not sure who those are, but I can probably open the article and see, they hiked and the Bank of Japan tightened. Then further down, it's going on to say warnings that rate hikes rate cuts may be threatened because of this war in Iran. So I think the only takeaway I have from this whole thing is the thing is far from perfect, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of those links were actually fake. But I will definitely go in and check them out the next time. But bringing this conversation of governments and politicians closer to home, I was actually listening to the guys on the Common Sense podcast recently. Sort of like a local. I normally don't listen to current affairs stuff because it's always just stuff. But I figure I don't know anything about what's going on in South Africa at the moment, so maybe I should actually listen to something, and that's quite a good one to listen to, just in terms of general stuff. But just listening to what you were saying earlier, Ricky, about the US being portrayed as the good guy, and they market themselves as such, but act as anything else. I think we've had a very recent situation with our own government here. Sort of came into power on the moral high ground. These are the guys that are now going to, they came in with a bit of a socialist view, but the idea was that things are going to get better. And I think for all intents and purposes, our economy did improve, and we started humming. I think the numbers they spouted was between 2004 and 2007. We were at 5% annual growth rate. But then, just like the Americans, maybe as an idea, an organization starts off with all the best intentions. So too did our current guys. And anyway, we can see what we're seeing at the moment. So yeah, we have elections coming up here. Herman, I just want to reiterate what you said, or underline what you said about, I was also kind of pro-Trump when he came up. He just seemed such an interesting guy. He wasn't scared to say stuff. He wasn't scared to shake the tree, drain the swamp, all those words that everyone likes to hear. And of course, when he came in, he did absolutely anything but. So I'm looking at our own politicians at the moment, and I suppose in South Africa's case, we have one obvious big problem, and that's the current clowns. They need to leave. But I suspect we will very soon replace them with another bunch of clowns. This John Steenhuisen guy, who seemed to do quite a good job for the DA, his handling of this whole foot and mouth thing, and he's had some personal finance issues, and he was skinny, he got fat. Now, I mean, that was in a short space of time. He started looking like a current, a regular minister. So I don't know. We've got these elections coming up, and once again, I don't have a question for anybody, but I suppose just to, Joburg's placing its hopes on Helen Zille coming in, and maybe in the beginning that will go well. And then maybe after a while, we'll have UK-style problems where we start having this like overarching, overreaching nanny state that gets thrust on us, and it's bureaucracy to hell and gone.
I have a super unpopular opinion on this. I don't think South Africa is a stable political unit. It was cobbled together by the British after the Boer War, forced into union. It was 4 countries before that. It was forced into union by the British. It was then the apartheid government in the Republic was formed, inherited that union, that unit, and it behooved them to keep it together because there's more resources to aggregate in a larger area, and obviously there's lots of wealth up north in South Africa. But it was coming apart at the seams. They couldn't keep the entropy, a lid on the entropy. And the entropy was that you had this Afrikaner nationalist government that was trying to have minority rule over a bunch of tribes that didn't want them to rule over it. Then the ANC inherited that from the nationalist government, and they've been going for 30 odd years now, almost as long as the nationalist government. And the entropy is pulling itself apart. And so, I think that South Africa it's not a organic, stable unit. It's not a real nation. The Rainbow Nation is a fictitious figment of people's imagination that some lefty dreamed up. It's not real. And the tribes don't agree. And I mean, the best way I can explain this to someone is that my view on living in the southernmost tip of Africa, and I'm literally from the southernmost tip of Africa, my view on what governance should be, what a mayor should do, what a local municipality should do, and what I expect from our politicians is very different from someone who lives in the northernmost tip of South Africa, a vendor who lives way up north. His view is very different than what the chief should do or what the mayor should do and what he expects from his government and what standards he listen to. And so why should my view be forced on him and why should his view be forced on me? And that's what the Republic of South Africa in its current form tries to do, is create this governance structure that, one size fits all, when it clearly doesn't fit anyone. And so you're trying to run this, you're trying to direct this massive country with all these 12 national languages and all these different groups all pulling in different directions and believe different things. And ultimately, if you want to have, if a government is for the people, by the people, it has to represent the people, and if it doesn't represent our views and ideas, you're not living in a democracy. You're living in something else that's being forced on you. So personally, in my view, I'd love to see Western Cape secession. I'd love to see KZN secession first, to be honest with you. I'd love to see secession of the Free State going, let's say all the Republic, all of it, go back, break apart, go to different tribal groups or, smaller units. If your unit is smaller, you're close to your politicians. If you're close to your politicians, you can always grab them off the street and tar and feather them. And that's essentially what you need to do. You need to make politicians scared again. Government needs to be local. The further your government is away from you, the more of an empire it becomes, the less of a say you have, the more of a subject you become and not a citizen. So that's my view of how it should go. And I like the Swiss canton system. So if we were to, break apart into independent republics, I'd like to see a canton system in each republic as well, which is where the canton can secede from the nation state. So each canton gets to vote. So you can be as close to your politicians as possible. And your local canton has the maximum level of control. The federal government has the least control. And so that's what I think would work best for places diverse in South Africa. People say, the Western Cape won't work. It doesn't have natural resources. We could explain Singapore or Hong Kong to me then. Like Western Cape is positioned on the global trade routes. Like you can absolutely make it work. The Cape Colony did work very well for 200 years, 300 years. So 200 years. So please spin me another story. I think it can do, but South Africa in its current format doesn't work. And I think just look at the last 100 years. Like it's just a history of one group oppressing another, for 100 years. Actually longer than that. Since Europeans started recording history in the Cape, since old Jan arrived, groups have been oppressing each other. And so maybe we should try something different.
Yeah, that comes straight into the whole sovereign individual thesis. Great book. I'm sure you guys have read it. And until that happens, what we do have, though, is we have our freedom stack, which is essentially our Bitcoin to spend, transfer wealth, save wealth. We have Nostr to communicate and share stuff. And I think AI is now probably the third leg of the stool in this freedom stack thing. I've just ordered myself one of these little, it's not a Mac Mini, but it's a Mac Mini equivalent. As a matter of interest, Mac Mini no longer are sold in 64 gig or 128 gig versions. Apparently all those chips are being sucked up by AI data centers. So they now only sell a maximum of a 24 gig version. Now, I'm not much of a tech guy, but I know things go 2, 4, 6, 8, 16, 32, 48. That's how memory works. 24 is some sort of hybrid of the two. Like they haven't quite given you the one, but they want to believe they've given you more than what they should have. Anyway, this thing is arriving, and I'm going to be setting this up. I'm looking at downloading my own LLM and running my own agents and having everything basically completely private, self-sovereign, running itself, doing its own thing without paying for API calls every time it wants to do that. And just on this topic of the Nostr as part of the Freedom Stack, I see that there's a project called Mostro, which has now launched a Nostr-based P2P Lightning exchange, which is pretty cool. The peer-to-peer stuff has been done before. It's normally centralized, not normally decentralized. The ones that are decentralized run through normal TCP/IP with IP addresses. This one seems to be a go at using the Nostr protocol to do that. I haven't checked it out myself, but just amazing to see that more and more stuff is getting built that allows you to basically say what you want to say, do what you want to do, pick up your money and go. And I do hope we see more and more of these smaller communities just deciding to do stuff for themselves. And maybe the Western Cape will break away, maybe KZN would break away. I do think we'll see it happening in some of the bigger places first. The US, I am fairly sure in my lifetime, will no longer be 50 states. I think Canada will have a bit of a split off there at some points, and I do think the EU will effectively collapse in our lifetime. But hey, maybe it will happen here. But the Freedom Stack thing is amazing, and I think not enough people actually look at it, try it, test it, and mess around with it. Yeah, once again, not a quick.
So Hadman and I can both attest to this. We've both been running Start9 servers for the past year or two. And I have 3 of them now. One I'm running on my own machine that I built myself, like an old Raspberry Pi, and the other 2 on the dedicated Start9 hardware. And I've upgraded to the beta version of 0.4.0, which is a new Start9 So I can highly recommend you spin that up on your machine, because it's built exactly for this. You can run, Olama, which is like open source models, do the whole thing there, all private, etc. The issue is that it does come down to hardware and how much juice you've got in there to actually run the queries. So like your models are restricted by what type of hardware you have. So it's like the graphics cards, basically. So I think I might be speaking under correction, but it sounds like StartOS is building in the ability to like plug in external graphics cards to your home server, so you can actually get beefier because presently they can't really run much. But yeah, if your hardware is a bit beefier, then you should be able to do it. But like I tried to run my Hermes agent on my Start9 machine, and that's at 32 gigs RAM, and it just absolutely nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. Like 30 seconds to get a response to like hello. So that will not do. So yeah, you need some beefy hardware there. But the Freedom Stack that you can run on StartOS is phenomenal. Like your own password manager, which is Start, your own file service, post all your files there. You can spin up what's called a virtual router, which means you can then connect all your devices from anywhere in the world to that virtual router, which then connects via WireGuard tunnel, VPN tunnel to your server. So you can access all your services from wherever you are. You don't have to do it via Tor, which if you had previously done that on the older version of StartOS, slow, cut user experience, not great. You can only really use it in your own local network at home, when you're on your own Wi-Fi network. So now, like I'm accessing my Start9 server, which is in Cape Town from Bali, no problem, which is great. It's fantastic user experience there. And like they constantly are building, there's new services being added. And the great thing about vibe coding is you just go to Start9, you download the docs, and you feed it as your agent, kind of learn how to package things for Start9. And then you can build your own services and run them on your own server. So you can run your own services that you can dream up, hook up, things you want to do for yourself. Home automation, take over the world, whatever you want to do, run on your own Start9 server, access with any device anywhere in the world by your virtual router and your website. So yeah, that's a super cool development. So I think Gavin, you said last time you had an Umbrel device previously. Umbrel's behind the curve on this with the ClearNet stuff. Start9 has really taken the lead here, and they've done an absolutely fantastic job. And this is why I wish Oaken was there, because he obviously works for Start9. And like he's helped me a huge amount on this stuff. It's so funny when I go into the support forum and I'm like, I need help, and I end up just chatting to Oaken. I'm like, I should have just called you. Like, why am I speaking to you to the support forum? But yeah, it's fantastic what they've done. Like I can't sing its praises enough. And the other thing is you can run your Fediments on there as well. There's Fediment Guardians on there. So word on the street is there's some local boys running Fediment Guardians in the Cape of Good Hope, which is community custody for Lightning wallets and Bitcoin wallets, which is better than trusting a custodian, and it's easier than self-custody. So that's all being run from Start9 devices locally in South Africa as well, which is super cool to see.
No, that is awesome. I mean, yes, I have been using Umbrel, and no gripes except for the issue about the tunneling, and you really struggle to do that. But the interesting thing about so Mac Minis, when I was looking around, I looked at what are the options, the Apple version and the non-Apple equivalent, and Mac Minis came up as a solid one because, I mean, they were quiet, low power, all that sort of thing. But there was something about unified memory or unified swap memory or something. So it could use, I think, some of your SSD space as RAM for tasks. So it made it quick and easy. Whereas the other units didn't seem to do that. But I've actually found a unit that does that. It's a brand new unit. It's from a company called B-Link. It's a Chinese company, seems to be quite well, seem to have a lot of reviews, seems to be fine. It's got top-end tech. It's got unified swap memory as well. So that's basically an Apple Mac or Mac Mini competitor direct there. So definitely going to check that out. Yeah, it's got 64 gigs of RAM on it, so that should be fine. I will just be careful not to like try and blow it too hard with a massive LLM model on there, and just, you know, get something more reasonable. But also, you know, the Chinese models, the open source models that are out there, very powerful stuff. So I've been using GLM 5.2 or something recently, and no complaints on that one. It's really cool. Yeah, actually,
I've actually built a whole project that I'm to launch quite soon, but using Quen, basically a bunch of different Quen models, and I've been using shout out to PPQ. So on my Start9 device, I would say I can't run my own models because of the hardware constraints, but you can host your own Git repository there. So like all your code base and stuff can live on there. And then the best way I've found, and like I speak under correction, other people might have found better solutions, but you can use PPQ as a pseudonymous way, because you don't have to sign up with an account, right? You just pay with some sats of Lightning, you get credits, and then you've got access to all the latest models, whatever model you want to use, you pay per query. PPQ stands for. And so like what I've found the way to do is you can link your PPQ to your account, PPQ account to your local Git repo that you're hosting your Start9, build your project there, and then everything lives on that repo. And then you can self-host your code base. And you build your service out, package it as a Start9 service, and you can run it from your own device if it ever needs to have, like, you know, internet access and all the rest. And so that way you can get access to frontier models, or the Chinese open source models, which are way cheaper than Anthropic, GPT, etc., OpenAI, etc. And yeah, I built a project for my current spend is about 1,000 Rand on the project, and the code base is quite big. Can do quite a lot of cool stuff. You guys will both find out about it soon enough when I launch it. But yeah, I basically spent about 1,000 Rand in tokens to build it, which not bad considering the amount of work that gets done. So that, and the reason why I say with PPQ is because you get a pseudonymous. You get, like, it's not quite anonymous, but you get pseudonymous. So like your things you're building are not linked to identities. When you're building it with Claude code, like that's directly linked to identity, right? And like you training their models, and like they know who you are because your credit card's linked to you. So with PPQ, you can at least get like a layer of privacy that way, because you can't self-host your own models because you don't put the hardware constraints. So that's kind of been my approach. It's not perfect, but it kind of works, and you get some privacy in what you're building, because if you might be building things that, like, I don't know, you just want the privacy around it for whatever reason, you can get it through working with PPQ. And yeah, shout out to Matt Elborg for what he's done with PPQ. It's absolutely phenomenal project. All the latest models are there, and you get access to them. Just pay for what you use in sats.
Yeah, cool. So I think, guys, I need you to send me a probably an email address that I can use for my agent to communicate with your agents. And I just want to research topics for the next podcast when we do it, and have my agent email your agent, and then your agent with your personalities can go through and add, find, delete, and kind of have fun just round robining this thing between 3 different agents to see what it comes up with, and then just fire off next month's one, just going, hey, this is what we have come up with.
So I'm pretty sure Signal has built in the ability to have a bot now with Signal, so you can have run an AI agent via Signal. and well, I know it can. And Hermes has got a MSP service that can do that. So with your Hermes agent, you can connect to Signal. So we can have our bots, 3 bots in a group, the bot chat, together, and they can all burn through tokens and waste our money together.
I think the easiest way would actually be to do it on Telegram. Signal is a little trickier. I've had issues with Signal. I mean, I know Telegram's not ideal, but
I fucking hate Telegram.
No, I hate Telegram as well. But it's by far the easiest way to get your agent to communicate with the rest of the world. WhatsApp is a nightmare.
Absolute nightmare. You have to go to Facebook to fucking register. Terrible.
Yeah, WhatsApp is a fucking nightmare. Signal, I've had issues with. Telegram is by far the easiest. But I'm not a big fan. I wish it was easier to get my agent to operate on Signal. I really wish it was. But for now, Telegram seems to be the easiest and the most reliable, at least.
I think it's a matter of time, though. Hey, like, all these guys have got to catch up because they've seen Telegram's got the lead, but I think Signal's going to figure out. Like, everyone's building agentic stuff now, right? So, like, hopefully, fingers crossed, they can make it work because Telegram's just such a cesspit. It's just scammers everywhere, and like whenever I go on there, it's just scammers, and like people are like, oh, you can turn it off, and I'm like, why is it on to start with? Like, the Signal's just much better.
Yeah, just to add to that, probably final thoughts from my side is I'm on the Sparrow Wallet Signal group, and probably 20 times a day, they have this pinned message that pops up that just says, hey, this thing is absolutely rife with spammers, this group.
You mean the Telegram group?
Yeah, the Telegram group for Sparrow.
For Sparrow, yeah.
And they have like an anon bot that you tap and you send a message through this thing. It anonymizes your name and then posts it onto the main Telegram group. And then any comms that you have on the group, it comes through on the anonymous bot on the one side plus the main Telegram group. But they're full of warnings. And so that's how they found a way around it, which I thought was quite clever. And I recently had to use them because I bought some BTC on chain, and the guy sent it to me. And then he's like, hey, yeah, he's had one confirmation, just letting me know it should all be fine. I jump on. I use Sparrow for these sort of things, and I see nothing. So I'm like, okay, no sweat. I'll just wait a while. Sometimes there's a bit of a delay. Anyway, about 5 hours later, I still see nothing. Now I'm starting to, the sweat is starting to roll down the one side of my forehead. I say, hey, man, I haven't seen anything yet. Please send me the transaction ID, which he does do. And by the time I check that out, now there's 70-something confirmations later. And I'm still not seeing anything. So now I'm cutting and pasting Bitcoin addresses, putting them one underneath each other, visually checking, is there a digit missing? What the hell's going on? Absolutely panicked. And then I jumped onto Sparrow Wallet, the Telegram chat.
Gap limit?
No, it turned out my node had just lost sync with the blockchain 2 days ago, and I wasn't even aware of it. So some guy said, hey, just check your node connectivity. And it's like, it's Tech 101. When someone says, I can't print, normally it's like restart your laptop or just check that the printer's plugged in, these sort of basics. And anyway, so I should have done that first, quickly resynced to the chain, and ta-da, payment came through. But I was properly starting to sweat. I sort of had horrors of something about silent payments, and this guy has copied the address and it looks like it's going to mine, but he's actually secretly sent it back to himself. And anyway, so adventures in the world of Bitcoin. So if anybody out there that sort of doesn't get a payment, just check that your node is connected. And I hope everybody is running their own node. Connect your Sparrow directly through to your own node. Just do everything yourself. It's not hard. We spoke about AI. I will tell you how to do that step by step, literally step by step, how to do it. And this is just a general public service announcement. If you get AI to give you some instructions and nothing happens, or you get an error message, just screenshot the error message, put it back into the chat and say, this is the error I get when I get to step 4, your instructions. And it'll go, oh, okay, well, clearly you're on this system. You should have told me that up front. So do this, do whatever. Anyway, so super useful. Screenshots for vibe coding and querying is incredible. I screenshot everything I do now. It just seems to work like a dream. Anyway, boys, I think we're up on time. Herman, you've got a holiday to get back to. Ricky, you got to go surf. I've got no one and nothing to do and no one to go back to. So anyway, just closing thoughts, please.
I'd say get your own device or buy a Start9 home server and start playing around with that. That coupled with vibe coding, man, the world is your oyster. Self-host everything.
I mean, closing thoughts. So there's a lot of things that can be said on this topic, but I think we're at a massive crossroads. We're at a bifurcation point in the history of humanity, and I don't want to overstate it, but I think that is really where you are. And I think at previous times when we got to these points, ultimately technology is the thing that gets us through it. And this whole centralized government thing that we have going on around the world, it just doesn't work, man. This is why you can't trust politicians. This is why countries go to war. We gotta get through to the other side of this. And I don't know what the other side of this looks like, but I know we're not going to get there through voting for a better politician or a better political party. I know, and so whatever the other side of this looks like, I think we get there through technology. And I think some of those technologies are the things that we discuss on this podcast. AI, particularly the more sovereign types, Bitcoin, censorship-resistant communication protocols like Nostr, those things. That's how we get to the other side of this. So I'm quite excited. But I think it's got to be a very bleak world out there for people who are not aware of these technologies. So yeah, let's keep talking about it.
Yeah, final thoughts on my side. I just want to encourage everybody to stop being afraid of the stuff. Go out there and just try it and use it. Get yourself a little bit of Bitcoin. Get off zero, buy something, move it around from your phone wallet onto somebody else. Just mess around. Just get comfortable with it. Take $5, $10, something, $50, something that you're not afraid to lose, and just try something. It really is an amazing time to be alive. We've got so much stuff going on. And I can't believe how resistant some people are to this. A while ago, Edwin from Vitsand had a project that he put together where you could actually send Bitcoin vouchers to people and they could actually download the Bitcoin straight into a wallet. And I sent 10 vouchers, little 50 Rand vouchers, 10 of them to mates of mine. And that with an expiry date of like 2 weeks, and then after that, it's an atomic transaction, so it just doesn't happen. You don't lose the money. Two people out of the 10 actually just followed the little on-screen instruction: click here, download this, do that. Nobody else even bothered. It's absolutely shocking, and I don't want to make a big thing out of it, but don't be one of those people. Don't be afraid of the stuff. Just do it, man. You can just do things. Anyway, boys, thanks for your time, as always. And Herman, give your wife a hug. Appreciate her letting you go for an hour and a bit. And Ricky, enjoy the evening. Guys, next month, our bots will be chatting, and so will we.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Gavin. Thanks, Herman.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Lekker dudes.
Keep it. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.